We want to talk about the pox.
We do. That's right.
The monkeypox, the smallpox, the camelpox.
Yeah, that's right.
So you have experience with camelpox.
I worked on camelpox, 20 years ago. And in fact, vaccinia, the cowpox that's used in vaccines. Pox viruses are very interesting to virologists for all kinds of reasons. They're great at dodging the immune system and manipulating our immune system in various ways, And of course, the big thing 20 years ago was bioterrorism, was the fear that smallpox would be released, say, on the subway in New York. So there was huge interest in smallpox 20 years ago. My lab did some work on it back then.
Yeah, and your lab was working on camelpox as well, and you got a call.
We did from the State Department of the US, rang me one day and said, "You've got samples of camelpox in your lab." Why? They were asking me, And I said, "Research project," But that just shows you how paranoid they were. At the time of the Gulf War, they were paranoid about pox viruses being
Now, why are pox viruses so lethal? How many do they kill out of 100 people? How many would die?
Well, smallpox is the worst by far. 1 in 3 die of smallpox in an unvaccinated population, which is a huge death toll. And in medieval times, it was the most feared of all the infections because 1 in 3 die. 1 in 3 survive because their immune system kicks in, and 1 in 3 are left pockmarked for life, and that was a horrible thing as well. So way back, and Jenner, the first vaccine against smallpox, and eliminated from the world. I mean, smallpox is now gone entirely from the planet, you see. And the vaccination campaign stopped, and anybody over 50 would have been vaccinated against smallpox. Anybody under 50
hasn't. And it's a pretty long-lasting vaccine. It's not
decades.
Like COVID, like every 6 months you might need a booster.
It's probably the best vaccine. Decades of protection if you have one, the course of the vaccination.
Will it protect you from monkeypox?
It will, very importantly, precisely, yes. 85% effective against any pox virus, really. And the current one we're discussing is monkeypox, 85% protection. So there's, and the Americans have stockpiled 1 billion doses of smallpox vaccine because they were frightened of bioterrorism, you see. So there's a massive supply available in the world. And in fact, some countries now are beginning to order it again, just in case this monkeypox thing gets a bit more prevalent, you see.
Yeah. Okay, so where did it come from? I mean, obviously from monkeys.
Well, strangely not. It was first found in monkeys in 1958. That's when it begins. They discover this new pox virus in a monkey. It's mainly in rodents. That's the main source. They're the reservoir in Africa. It's endemic in many African countries and a very rare enough disease, even in those countries. You get a few hundred cases per year, in the Congo and places like that. And what happens is the rodent might bite someone, or you can have human-to-human transmission because it is through close contact only. But like the blisters you get, like the pock marks, they're infectious, you see. And if you rub a blister into a wound, then it might spread that way, Or fluid, saliva. It's in saliva as well. That's how it spreads mainly.
Okay, so do we know how we are getting cases then across Europe in different countries?
It's not to be too fearful of all these headlines. Of course, I think we're hypersensitive to new viruses, aren't we? At the moment, the scientific mystery is they can't trace where several people have caught it from. The first case was May 7th in the UK. That was someone that came back from Nigeria and must have picked it up there off a rodent, potentially. Yeah. The other people, though, there's only 120 cases so far, not that many. They can't really figure out how those people caught it. And that's a scientific mystery. We'd like to know where it's come from. But it's more than likely human to human now. So some human picked it up and then spreads it to another human. But it is quite hard to catch. You need very, very close physical contact to pick it up, especially with the lesions. And in fact, the main way to transmit it is symptomatic. So someone has a blister, like the classic chickenpox blisters. If that's the source of the infection, really. So they must have caught it off someone with a blister.
Now, it's said not to be sexually transmissible, but that doesn't mean that the intimate contact involved in sex might not lead to transmission.
I think sex is close contact, but for prolonged periods, you see. So sex can be a way to transmit it. That's only one, though. And any kind of close contact, really, for a prolonged period of time, you can catch it off someone else who has it.
Now, we know that with COVID, it took them a while to come up with an effective antiviral.
Yep.
But there is one for this.
There is. That's the other good news with this, in a way. There's a very powerful antiviral, which has been around. It's called T-Pox. Great name for the trade name, But that was discovered about 20 years ago, actually. And again, it was the US Army invested in a company called SIGA who made this antiviral to kill pox viruses. And the Americans have stockpiled again 1 million doses or something, just in anticipation of in case of a smallpox outbreak. But we have an antiviral, very effective against monkeypox as it would be against any of these pox viruses. So that's like your plan B in a way, in a sense.
Okay, so it's nothing particularly to worry about. It's not in any way as lethal as smallpox. So what is the journey of the disease through your system? What happens to you?
It starts with the flu-like symptoms, of course. A fever is a feature of this, by the way. And then the classic signs of these pox, these little blisters filled with fluid on your skin appear. And we've seen images of this, haven't we? And it lasts 2 to 4 weeks, and then people are laid up. And remember, the vast majority get over it, you see. Less than 1% fatality. overall, and then that will be even in people who have other conditions anyway, you see. There was an outbreak back in 2003, for instance, in America. It was a pet shop, can you believe, and a rodent was imported from Africa into the pet shop. 70 people got infected. Nobody died. It lasted 2 to 4 weeks. It's very self-limiting, because if you've got pockmarks on your skin, you stay home, don't you? And you can see who's infectious and who isn't. It's very different to COVID, because obviously it's symptomatic spread in that way.
And do those pustules resolve? I mean, do you end up with blemish-free skin at the end of it?
Well, some will have scarring, like with smallpox, but the vast majority crusts over eventually, the blister.
But you can imagine the parent saying to a child, "Leave it alone. Don't pick at it, or you'll end up with the scar."
Well, that's exactly right. Yeah, precisely. Yeah. Scars will happen if you pick at it. And it's, by the way, the lesions are slightly different. Say the chickenpox, they're more painful than itchy. Usually these things are itchy. With these pox viruses, it's actually quite painful, the blister. But again, it'll resolve, and the body, the immune system kicks in. You see, and clears it.
But it's the virus's way of spreading itself, making itself itchy. So you itch, you then expose the fluid, which then transmits.
That's exactly right. These viruses are clever. They want to spread from person to person, don't they? So the itching will help it to spread.
But for the moment, not to worry.
But keep an eye on it. I mean, it's unusual. But the WHO have said this is an unusual situation, because it's the greatest number of cases since 1970. You see, and that's setting a tiny alarm bell. Even though the numbers are small, there's still 120, 30 cases. So they're watching it, and they want to find out where it came from. The big unknown is, has it changed from the previous one? Again, the usual idea of variants emerging. They're sequencing all the genomes now to see if it's different. Now, it's a DNA virus, by the way, whereas COVID is an RNA virus. DNA viruses don't mutate very much anyway. So the chance of it mutating is pretty low, because it's a DNA virus.
I mean, the scary thing would be if it turned into a respiratory virus by mutation.
Or was more transmissible through more, less contact, I guess. That would be a concern. Or went respiratory, as you say, in the air. That's very unlikely, but we'll know that in the next week or so, actually, because they'll know from the sequence of the virus, has it changed or not. And because it's DNA, it's unlikely to have changed. The RNA viruses are the ones that change, you see.
All right, so at the moment, a watching brief, but not to be alarmed.
Exactly.